I've talked about a few times when money dies and the consequences of money dying. But since it's happened throughout history with regular intervals, every 100, 150 years, it's quite a normal phenomenon. But still, every time it happens, governments, central banks, and people find it a surprise. It shouldn't be if you read history, but nobody reads history, of course. And if they have read history, they think it's different today because they live today. Now, I want to talk about something else dying, which is people. It sounds pretty horrible, but that's a fact, of course. We all die, so that's not the problem. But I want to look at the evolution of the global population over the last few hundred years or even few thousand years. If you look at the graph here, human population has gone sideways for a very long period of time, just around or below the 1 billion mark. And then from around 1850, population grew from 1 billion up to 8 billion today, a massive growth. So what was the reason for that? Well, obviously, the main reason was energy. The world discovered energy, and therefore machines and automation and manufacturing, etc. No more needed one person to do all the work, manual work, but instead we had machines that could do it for us. And that's why population increased dramatically from 1 billion to 8 billion. Now, if you look at this graph, it's a straight line, it's a spike. It has hardly slowed down a little bit now lately, but you can't even see it. And now, any graph that goes straight up and a graph that's taken on a big sample, like in this case, sample of the whole of the world population, that kind of graph does not continue straight up, and it doesn't just stop and go sideways either. What is more likely, before it continues growing again, that we see a proper correction. And when I say proper, that's not just a few 100 million or 1 billion. I think this graph will correct by 30, 40, even maybe 50%. So we could see world population going from 8 billion to 4 billion. Of course, that would be absolutely catastrophic for the world. 4 billion people dying, or dying prematurely, or 4 billion people disappearing from the global population. So how can that happen? Well, there are obviously many very clear causes for this. You can have war, you can have famine, you can have disease, you can have economic disaster, you can have civil war, and obviously, as we're seeing in many countries today, the birth rate is going down dramatically. I mean, China, for example, most of Europe, and many other countries. So the world population on the whole is not growing as it has been. And therefore, I would expect that the population will even go down as much as 4 billion. Now, how long will that take? Well, if it's not an absolute disaster or nuclear war or Black Death that halved the population very quickly in the 1300s. In the world, it's actually the global population, especially in Europe, but probably even in the whole world, halved during Black Death. So it's possible that we have that again, or it's possible that we have a war. But just looking at this graph and looking at it coldly without any emotions whatsoever, but just looking at the graph that has gone up straight up, it's very likely that the correction will be virtually straight down. Whether that takes, as I said, 10 years or whether it takes 50 years or 100 years, only future historians will tell us that. But that's something that the world should be prepared for, and I don't think anyone is prepared for it because most people in the world just extrapolate trends. But this is not a trend that I think can be extrapolated, be very dangerous, and I think governments around the world need to do a lot of planning because the consequences of such a correction will be dire. Sorry about this negative message. I think it's inevitable that we will have something that reduces global population by a major percentage.